But who better than me?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to more end of the year awards for 2024 with your boy BaseDaKID. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. We're getting to the men now. It's the male fighter of the year for 2024. This one could be controversial, but I think that most people will agree with me, even if they have a slight issue with the order that I've put a couple of these fights in. But yeah, I think we'll get at a fair consensus. Some might surprise you as well, but you know, I'll give my reasons and you guys can let me know how right or how wrong I am in the comments. So without further ado, let's get into the picks. So in at number 5, maybe a person that a lot of you wouldn't really have thought about, maybe don't know a lot of, and that's understandable, but I'm here obviously to bring awareness to you on certain people that you maybe don't hear about all the time. This one might be a bit controversial. This may not be in anyone else's list, but it is in mine. So my number 5 male fighter of the year for 2024 goes to Oscar Collazo, aka El Papito. Now, the reason I've given Oscar my number 5 slot, I'm going off of the premise of activity matters, keeping your name out there, and obviously, you know, taking your opportunities when they come. Now, Oscar has been a reigning WBO champion for for a little while. I think about a year and a bit now, right? But he had a fight in January, then he had another fight in June, and then he had a unification fight with the second highest, rated well, technically they were the longest reigning champion in the minimum weight division, Tamanung Neomchong, aka Knockout CP Freshmont, who, if you know the lower weight classes, is a name that was very, very well known. He was like 25-0. I think he had his belt for like 9 years or something like that. It's a crazy amount of defenses that he was like 25-0. I think he defended the belt like 9 times over 6 years or something like that. I can't quite remember exactly what the stats are, but I remember obviously some of his fights previous. Obviously on Oscar, not only did he beat him, he pretty much dominated the fight to unify the division at minimum weight. He's looking for the other titles, but he's also looking to potentially move up to light fly, and make a run at the belts there, especially the fact that Taraji has gone up to flyweight. So yeah, look, I'm giving it to Oscar Collazo because he was busy. He unified. He took his opportunity on a Riyadh season card taking place in where was it taking place? In California, I believe. No, sorry, it was actually in Riyadh. It was their free card on the undercard of Ramirez and Billum Smith. So yeah, I'm giving him his credit for that, keeping the activity and doing what champions should be doing, which is being active. I understand if you guys feel differently, but that's my opinion. So yeah, leave in the comments, let me know. But yeah, my number 5 fighter of the year on the male side for 2024 goes to Oscar Collazo. And in at number 4, possibly could have been higher. This was a bit of a tricky situation, but my number 4 male fighter of the year for 2024 goes to Daniel Dynamite Dubois. And Daniel was very unlucky here, because if I had done the awards basically December to December, which I do know some people do, he would have been a lot higher on this list. He could have potentially been number 1, purely because he faced Jerome Miller in December of 2023 in a fight that he was actually the underdog in. He was expected to lose that fight based on obviously what had happened with the Alexander Usyk fight, the Joe Joyce fight, etc. He was the underdog. Not only that, then on the 5v5 in June, he fought Filip Hrgović. He was the underdog in that fight as well. knocked out Hrgović, or stopped Hrgović, I should say. Didn't knock him out, but busted him up, cut up his face to the point where the referee and the doctor said he can no longer continue. Obviously, he stopped Jarrell Miller in December, and then he knocks out and dominates Anthony Joshua over 5 rounds for the IBF heavyweight title in September. A lot of very good activity. Obviously, again, if it was in December, we're talking 3 fights where he was the underdog in the space of 12 months. Those 3 fights actually would have been within the space of just under 10 months overall. And yeah, he did that, and he would have been much higher on the list, winning he got elevated to the world title, but he defended it against against a former 2-time unified champion. He beat 2 undefeated fighters as well, so that would have got him much higher up on the list. But because I do my list very specific to the year, it's not December to December, it's January to December. He had 2 fights, and of those 2 fights, yes, he was favored to lose both, but he did win. He's on a big resurgence, he's on a big momentum at the minute. He's got Joseph Parker to contend with in February, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, with all of that accomplishments and everything that he's done and the comeback that he's had since 2023, Daniel Dubois had to take it on this list. He had to get on the list, and I've got him at number 4. Now, my number 3 male fighter of the year for 2024, it goes to Artur Beterbiev. And I think I'm going to get a lot of stick for this one. I think I'm going to get crucified. And I'll tell you what, I probably deserve it. I initially had him at number 2. When you find out why I've swapped him with the other person that I've put on there, you'll probably get a bit of an understanding as to where my thought process was. But Artur Beterbiev, he had 2 fights this year, which is the first time in a while that he's actually had 2 fights in the same calendar year. Fought in January, fought his mandatory for the WBC belt against Callum Smith, who was widely considered one of the best in the division, and it was a mandatory. There was no rematch clause, etc. It happened in Montreal, it happened in Quebec, I believe, obviously in Canada. It was a dominant, comprehensive beatdown of Callum Smith. Yes, he was the heavy favorite to sort of win that fight, unless of course you were a Brit and you were applying Brit bias and Brit tax to the situation. But yeah, he destroyed Callum Smith in 7 rounds. It was barely competitive. Did what he had to do. Then in October, he unified the division fully and became undisputed against Dimitri Bivol in what is one of the best fights of the year. The only reason I've put him at number 3 and not number 2, because obviously being undisputed, you normally should get that consideration, but the Callum Smith fight, he was a heavy favorite to win by anyone that had sense in the sport of boxing. And in the Dimitri Bivol fight, even though he did win, it was a majority decision victory. There was a lot of people who believed that Dimitri Bivol did enough to win the fight. Obviously, a lot of people felt that Artur Beterbiev was the right person, and some people believed it should have been a draw. So it wasn't like a clean sweep or like a dominant performance or anything like that. Now, that being said, they are 2 elite level boxers, 2 elite level athletes. So the fact that it was as close as it was shows how good he is. But ultimately, it was a round in it, a point in it between the 2. It was very hard to separate the 2 of them, and just because it wasn't like super duper clean in terms of the opinions of him winning that undisputed, hence why they're running it back so quickly in February of this year, 2025. That's the reason I've knocked him down from number 2 to number 3. Again, come at me, I'm happy to take all the bullets, but I hope you guys can understand where I'm coming from. Okay, look, I'm probably gonna get a whole load of stick for this, but you know what, I'm here for it. I'm here for the smoke. Like, I'm gonna give you my reasons. If you don't like them, cool. But my number 2 male fighter of the year for 2024 goes to Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. Now, a lot of you are probably screaming at the cameras right now, like, how the hell does he get in above Artur Beterbiev, who just became undisputed in arguably like the best fight of the year? Like, how does that happen when both of them had the same number of fights? One became undisputed, one just won titles. Okay, so taking everything into account, Zurdo Ramirez was a former champion at 168 pounds, won WBO title at 168, went up to 175, got schooled by Dmitry Bivol back in, it was the end of 2022. Then he was supposed to have another fight at light heavyweight, couldn't make the weight anymore, ballooned up in weight, or didn't try to make the weight, one or the other. Ended up having a catchweight fight with Joe Smith Jr. in 2023. It was the only fight he had in that year. Went up to cruiserweight, so his third weight division, after being a champion at 168 pounds. Fights a long reigning champion in Arsen Goulamirian. Yes, Goulamirian hadn't fought many bouts in the last several years due to promotional issues and legal disputes or whatnot, but Gilberto gave up size advantage, he gave up the strength advantage, and probably the punching power as well. But he went in there, he was the underdog in that fight. He wasn't picked to, as far as I'm aware, I remember the betting odds, like Goulamirian was the betting favorite. It's like, if he lands, Zurdo's in trouble. Well, he landed, Zurdo ate those shots, but Zurdo just outworked him on the inside and on the outside. Like, just a pretty comprehensive victory. Not dominant, but it was comprehensive. He goes straight from that fight into a unification bout with the second longest reigning cruiserweight champion in the division, Chris Billam-Smith, who had been on a major tear, beating Lawrence Okoli, who at the time was considered the number 1 in the division. Beat Richard Riakporhe earlier this year. Also had beat Mateusz Masternak at I think it was the end of 2023 in a mandatory defense. So he was flying high, and again, he was the much bigger guy of the two. Naturally, he was the taller guy, slightly wider shoulders, everything. He had the size advantage. He was the betting favorite to, as far as I'm aware, he was the betting favorite for most of the world, I believe. I can't remember all the betting odds, but obviously in the UK, everyone believed that he was going to win this fight, or all the British media. In America, I'm not sure how they saw a lot of it as well, but Zurdo came in on that Latino night in obviously Saudi Arabia, and he basically dog walked Chris Billam-Smith for 12 rounds, to the point where there was times people are calling Chris Billam-Smith should have been pulled out of the fight. He was never in necessarily an issue of potentially getting stopped, but he was just taking punishment unnecessarily. Busted up eye, busted nose, apparently busted hand as well. So he was just in there taking the beating, round after round after round, losing. Didn't have much power. Didn't even have the one punch equalizer option after about round sort of 6 or 7. So he was just in there, just taking punishment, just getting outworked, out hustled, beat up on the inside, beat up on the outside. Zurdo just put on a clinic after the very first round, in which Chris Billam-Smith had some success. So because of that performance, winning 2 belts in the year of 2024, plus going up 2 weight classes, and not just any significant insignificant jumps. We're talking about a 7-pound jump from one weight class to another initially, and then from that 7 pounds 25 pounds to the cruiserweight limit. So you know, if we're looking at his entire career, or from where he started to now, 32 pounds additional weight he's put on, and he's beating these guys that are naturally much bigger than he is. So for that purpose, and that purpose alone, becoming a unified champion in 2024, I think Zurdo Ramirez deserves my number 2 spot. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anyone, so I don't even need to build it up. My number 1 male fighter of the year for 2024 goes to Alexander Usyk. He fought Tyson Fury twice this year, a Tyson Fury that many Americans especially considered to be the greatest of this era, and possibly an all-time great in any era. You know, famously, Timothy Bradley said that he could compete in any era, and he could be an all-time great heavyweight in any era. Well, Alexander Usyk beat him twice, and to me, beat him comprehensively both times. The fact that Tyson Fury was able to get a split decision the first time was very, very generous. I scored that fight 111-116 to Usyk. Obviously, he was potentially robbed of that knockout victory by the referee constantly getting in the way and stopping him from being able to deliver that blow in the 9th round. We all saw what happened there. But Tyson Fury outweighed him in the first fight by 39 pounds. And then in the rematch, when they ran it back, he outweighed him by 55 pounds. So when you look at, you know, that you look at this guy who's literally given up about 4 stone in weight to his opponent. Arguably, it could have arguably been close to that in both of the fights. A guy that's not a natural heavyweight, he literally has to eat himself to heavyweight and to stay there. He obviously has complained about the amount that he has to eat to keep the weight on while he's doing his training and all of that stuff. But this guy giving up every advantage, the height advantage, the reach advantage, the weight advantage, maybe not the strength advantage, but you know, all of these different all of these elements, and he's coming in and he's finding a way to dismantle, you know, these much bigger guys. Truly just an elite, once in a generation talent. If he retired now, he is an ATG. He may not be an ATG heavyweight because that jury's out. Maybe you've got to do more work in the heavyweight division as a whole. But when you look at his entire run, what he's done from cruiserweight up to what he's done at heavyweight, going to everyone's backyard and taking their belts, never winning a belt on his home soil, all of that stuff, constantly giving up ground and giving up weight to, you know, especially within the heavyweight division. It's a no-brainer. He became undisputed, the very first undisputed heavyweight champion, especially, well, in the 4-belt era period, but the first undisputed champion in, I think it was 26 years. Like, you know, we're talking 2/3 of my life almost, you know, where we haven't had an undisputed heavyweight champion. He did that. Not only did he do that, he then ran it back with the same guy and beat him even more comprehensively in the rematch. Yeah, look, the guy is just special. Capricorn excellence. Birthday's coming up soon, so all that good stuff. I don't even need to say much more. I don't think anyone can argue that point with me, but if you want to, the comments is there for a reason. Have at it. But yeah, look, that is my number 1 male fighter of the year for 2024. Leave a comments down below, let me know what you guys think, but I will catch you on the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Peace.